I'm Allendale's chief meteorologist, Ryan Martin. Let's take a look at your midday weather update. The latest check of the surface analysis across the middle of the country doesn't show anything that's all that exciting right now. A couple of fronts slowly sagging across the country. The southernmost front sits down through the deep south and then comes back through the central plains. This has been a focal point for some decent thunderstorms already today. Western, southwestern parts of Missouri, southeast Kansas, northeast Oklahoma. These have been able to hold together fairly well. It reminds me a lot of the thunderstorm cluster that held on yesterday through midday across parts of Missouri and even through some rain into central southern Illinois before all was said and done. So, yeah, we've got some action there. This front behind it, or I should say to the south of it, we've got very warm air in. Yesterday, temperatures reached the mid to upper 90s across parts of south central and southwest Kansas into north central, northwest Oklahoma. So there's very warm air there. You've got cool air off to the north and west, though. Actually, another cool front sagging southward through northern parts of the Corn Belt. Temperatures there below normal. And so the difference in these air masses across the country, part of what's really helping to fuel these thunderstorms. And so we'll have to keep an eye out for those as we go through the rest of the afternoon. And now, other things that we're going to be paying attention to, well, a significant front that's going to be sagging southward across the Corn Belt here as we go through the weekend. This front continues to look like it wants to bring in plenty of moisture, probably 1/2 to 1 inch rainfall totals across Minnesota, Wisconsin, and then through the rest of the Corn Belt. This will start in Minnesota probably late tomorrow, mid-afternoon, late afternoon in there. But it is moving quicker. We kind of talked about this in our abbreviated online write-up this morning. The fact that this front looks like it's probably going to be all the way through to the Ohio River by early Sunday morning. So this is a ripper. It's going to move fast. That means there's probably going to be more thunderstorms along with it, bigger convection. Unfortunately, with more convection like that, we're also looking at probably a little bit less coverage. We stair-stepped it back to 80% this morning. As I take a look at things at midday here, I would say we might even have to step that back to 70% coverage across the Corn Belt. So there will be a few spots that actually end up getting missed. I don't think it's going to be a big deal, a big miss at all, but there will be a few places that are on the outside looking in. The other thing that we want to pay attention to here short term as we go into and through the weekend, that's the remains of the hurricane coming across the deep south, or I should say the southern part of the plains. Arizona, New Mexico, yeah, heavy rains flooding there. We're also going to be seeing some very heavy rains into parts of west Texas. As a matter of fact, we're hearing that some parts of Texas there may see half their annual rainfall out of this one event. You put that together with what they had earlier this year, and that means they will have gotten their entire annual rainfall out of just 2 systems. What's interesting here, and we saw this start to creep out last night, and we're seeing more of it here today, this morning through midday, is talk by other weather service offices through the central plains about this moisture actually getting into their neck of the woods. The Wichita, Kansas National Weather Service now calling for heavy rains across southern Kansas as we go through Saturday, blaming it on the hurricane. That's not quite right. We're not going to be seeing the heavy hurricane moisture get all the way up there. This is going to be a Texas and Oklahoma thing. Now, we can see some good strong thunderstorms in that part of the world thanks to the front sagging southward. But to call for the moisture to go that far north is just not quite right, and I think we may see this go even farther north in terms of people talking about how much rain is coming, and it's just a little bit overdone at this point. We mentioned that this morning online, and we're continuing to hear reports of this as we go through the day. Now, as we go forward, the extended forecast period really doesn't look all that changeable to me right now. We're going to be dry following this front next week in the Corn Belt. I do see some thunderstorms firing off Monday night into Tuesday in the Central Plains and even back into parts of northeast Colorado, western Nebraska. This will be a small cluster. I think we're probably looking at rains on the order of 1/2 to 1 inch, coverage about 50 to 60% in the Central Plains, but they don't really hold together and move east very well. So I'm going to leave the rest of the Corn Belt mostly dry through next week. We're going to be watching for our next frontal boundary to try and pop up toward the end of next weekend and into the week following. The European team tends to keep us a little bit drier than the GFS does right now, but the GFS has been flip-flopping quite a bit here as of late, and so confidence in that model is low anyway. Temperatures, definitely going to start to kind of skew these downward just a little bit. As we mentioned this morning, we don't see any major cold air blast yet, but what we are seeing is each successive model run, and we're talking both European, U.S., and even some other models, taking just a bit of the shine off of these above normal temperatures. To me, as this next front starts to come across the Corn Belt this weekend, ahead of it we are going to see a big spike in temperatures, but then behind, you know what? Normal is probably going to be the name of the game. We'll see some cooler air in for a couple of days, but I don't think we can talk about above normal temperatures very much here through the rest of September into October. Now, granted, we're only a few months away or a few weeks away from a month change here, but the warmer air is definitely being skewed farther west. The ridge wants to stay farther west at this point, and so I think we have to kind of look more for normal temperatures through the rest of this upcoming period. That's what we've got in your midday update. If you've got any questions on the weather, give us a call here at Allendale. We'll get you hooked up. I'm Chief Meteorologist Ryan Martin.